In Montana, they have huge mountains. Of course they do. And as we worked there during the summer, right on the border of Glacier National Park, there was a certain mountain called Single Shot. And this is where I got caught in a full-scale avalanche. Not being dramatic here, this was a life-altering moment. And probably one of the coolest stories that I hope you will ever hear. We were with some good friends from Romania, Andy and Andy. We called them the Andys. And I was with Liz's good friend Chris, and I was with Liz herself. And we wanted to go up to Single Shot Mountain. If I remember correctly, it's around 10,000 feet. Not a lot, but it was in June, and there really shouldn't be a lot of snow up there, even though it did briefly snow. Very, very briefly. But it was always sunny, so it melted fast. Well, I took my ice axe just in case. You never know when you need an ice axe. It was fun to carry it, okay? Well, I'm glad I did carry it because I scaled an avalanche chute, which you may think, what are you thinking? It's an avalanche chute. But there wasn't a lot of snow, so not a lot of danger. Well, there was an extreme amount of danger. And I made several mistakes, huge mistakes. And I am ashamed to say that I paid dearly for it. Allow me to impart to you some of this wisdom. First, never separate yourself from the party, the group of people. When you're out mountaineering, stay together. Second, do not get summititis, which is a overwhelming desire to get to the summit, to get to the peak. Bouncing off of that, number 3 is know when to turn back. Whether it's weather, whether it's summititis, as previously mentioned, but know when to turn back. Don't get stubborn. And yeah, those are pretty much it right there. A few other, hints and tips and tricks are just, well, be prepared, have right equipment, know how to use the equipment, or else it's useless. And yeah, I started crawling up this avalanche chute, and my foot kind of got stuck because it would burst through the snow because it was pretty thin, and it would sort of dangle there in some little holes in the rocks. And so I sort of just kind of pulled myself up this slope with my ice axe and my toes barely digging into the snow. Well, I got to the top. It was beautiful. I took some pictures, and I was just thinking to myself, aha! It's a good thing that I did this, because this is so beautiful. In actuality, it was pretty sad, because I was the only one up there. And Chris, halfway up, said, no, Bo, I can't do this anymore. He did not have an ice axe with him, and he was pretty smart, and he just said, I'll wait here. And I was like, oh, the top is right there. Summititis. Bad. I got to the top, and it was very lonely because I was all by myself. Lame. Took a picture. Well, in case you're familiar with mountaineering or not familiar, about 90% of all accidents on the mountain happen when you're going down. For several reasons. You have gravity that is pulling you in the direction that you're heading. Fatigue. I was getting pretty tired. And then a last reason is just, well, it's the nature of going downhill. You can't quite see far enough ahead of you. As opposed to going uphill, the terrain is right in front of your face, like 3 feet in front of your nose, as opposed to 10 feet down the mountain. Well, I was on my way down, and my foot burst through the snow as it was, and I was like, man, this is frustrating. And it got lodged between 2 rocks. And I'm pretty sure I sprained my ankle trying to yank it free, but that kind of became secondary after I got caught in the avalanche. because I thought to myself, well, I will just glissade down, which is sliding down on your butt. Because I'm in control, I have my ice axe, I could always self-arrest. And so down I slid this slope, and I started going faster and faster and faster. And I thought to myself, okay, whoa, Bo, you're going too fast, better self-arrest. So I rolled over onto my stomach, kicked my feet in, dug my ice axe, but I was still moving. That's because the snow underneath me was moving at my speed. I picture me being on a sled, but the sled is made out of snow. So I'm kind of floating on this island. And so I rolled back over onto my butt, and I'm like, how do I get off of this thing? And I am seeing this sharp wall. I mean, this rock is extremely sharp. Picture like splintering shards of shale. I mean, it's not like a lot of rock is nice and soft, but this was extremely sharp stuff. And I remember going faster and faster and faster, and one of the moments that stuck in my mind was I thought to myself, wow, it's like I'm on a roller coaster. You know when you're on a roller coaster and you feel the wind in your face? That was the sensation I had, this wind blasting my face. I was going that fast, and I saw Chris whiz by me, just whoo, and he was like, Bo? And I was like, oh! This was really bad because obviously I just passed my buddy. I was supposed to go down that route. So I was now traveling at a tremendous speed down a route that I was not familiar with. I had no idea what was in front of me, except what I could sort of see through my eyes that were tearing up from the wind. What I saw was the edge of a cliff, and I had no idea how steep this cliff was. It could have been 2 feet, it could have been 500 feet, because we were on the side of a mountain, and on mountains there are cliffs, duh. So I thought to myself, I'm probably going to die here. And so I said the most sincere prayer I have ever said, and it was, Jesus, help me. That was it. And that, I'm not kidding you. What? It's a little difficult to think back at that. When you almost die, you don't really like to think of it. But I did almost die. And Jesus saved me. Because right after I prayed that, I said, Jesus, save me. I took my ice axe and I threw it to the side because I had the wherewithal to know that if I went over this cliff, the last thing I wanted to do was land on this sharp piece of metal that was slung across my chest. So I threw it to the side, and over the cliff I went. This cliff was not 10 feet, not 20 feet, but 30. I know this because I actually went back later just to find out exactly how steep this cliff was. And I went with my good friend Matt Park, and he saw it. And he was like, you went over this cliff? I said, uh-huh. I landed right there, which I did. I went over, and I had both of my arms up in front of my face to protect me. And as I went over, a tremendous amount of snow was pushing my back. So it wasn't just me falling, it was me and 2,000 pounds of snow on top of me. And I landed on these rocks down below like this. And I remember that I hit the rocks with so much force, my sunglasses came shooting off my face, almost as if someone had a baseball bat and it hit me in the back of the head and just shot my glasses off my face. And tons of snow was pounding on top of me, and I was rolling around. And if you've ever been caught in an avalanche, you'll know that snow is not light. It is like cement. If you get buried, you are buried. You cannot get out. You'll also know that snow is extremely cold, of course, but it's the equivalent of getting an ice cube and rubbing it vigorously on your skin. Only instead of an ice cube, it's thousands of pounds of snow. And so I was so cold, and I did not know what was broken because I was completely numb. I didn't know if I had lost my arm. I didn't know if I had split open my face because everything was wet. I didn't know what was blood and what was water, and it was a nightmare. And as I rolled at the base of this cliff, getting pushed down further by the snow, I looked up and I saw this island that I crawled up onto, sort of this rock poking up, and all this snow rushing around it. And I gripped onto the rock and pulled myself up onto it. And immediately I started looking at all of my clothes and ripping them off, trying to figure out if I was bleeding. And I was trying to look in my sunglasses that had fallen off. I'd picked them up and I was trying to look and see, like, am I bleeding anywhere? Yes, I was bleeding rather severely, but I was bleeding from my elbows and my shins. Still have scars on them because as I landed, the shale sliced right through my extremely thick long underwear and my pants and my jacket and everything. Wow. The worst part about this whole thing, falling, getting caught in an avalanche, is Liz, my lovely wife. She saw the whole thing. She was down below and she heard kind of this roar, this rumbling, and she looked up and saw, in her own words, it looked as if a rag doll was coming and getting pushed over this cliff edge. She didn't see where I fall, she just saw me falling a long ways. And so I tried to call. I actually had a cell phone and I actually had reception. I called Chris and I was like, Chris, I think I'm okay. Just get here quickly. And so he started scrambling down. It took him a long time, and then Liz was way down there. So it took her it felt like 20 or 30 minutes to get to me. And during that period, I had finally diagnosed myself and found out that I had a large chunk of flesh missing from my shin. And I was bleeding, and so I kept it elevated, I kept it iced, kept it iced. And believe it or not, I actually took pictures because I thought to myself, here we are out in the middle of nowhere, and if I'm going to be able to hike out, I'm going to need my mind. And so I'm going to need myself I'm going to need to distract myself. If I don't, I'm going to go into shock. I guarantee it, because I thought I was going to die, and I'm bleeding profusely. And so I took pictures, purposefully. They were horrible pictures, but I took them to distract my mind. Yeah, they're awful pictures. Liz got to me, she patched me up, and we did end up hiking out. It wasn't until I got back that I really allowed myself to reflect on exactly what happened. And I really should have died. And when I tell this story to people, some people are like, oh, yes, I've had near-death experiences as well. But I challenge that. I really do. Not to say that mine is better than theirs or anything like that, but this truly was a moment where I should have gone, but God didn't let me go for some reason. People die from falling off 10-foot ladders all the time, but 20 feet, let alone 30? I'm at loss. He hasn't let me go for a reason. So, cry out to him. It works. He's a legit power. Sorry for getting preachy here, but it's so true. That's the Avalanche story.